Hi, my name's Steve Appel, and thanks for tuning in to another edition of Work Comp Matters. This show is entitled, I Want to Be a Lawyer. However, it's not me. I never spent a day in law school. I'm not a lawyer. It's Kim Kardashian. And let me tell you something. I have no problem whatsoever with Kim becoming a lawyer. I think it's great. But apparently, a lot of you do out there, so we're going to talk about it right now.
Stand by SOT1.
Standing.
10 seconds. Ready, rollin'. Ready, SOT1.
Ready.
In 4, 3, 2, 1. Roll in.
From the round table at legendary Uncle Studios in beautiful Southern California, welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters, the central location for you employees, you employers, and of course we haven't forgotten about you damn independent contractors. My name is Steve Appel, and I'll be your host for the next hour with some talk, news, and hopefully some answers about Work Comp Matters. Thanks for being part of the show, and if you can break away from your Work Comp Matters, feel free to give us a call and clue us in with your questions, comments, and or concerns. The phone number worldwide, 818-357-4120. You can send me an email to wcexaminer@aol.com. Heck, you can be old school. Send me a fax, 818-475-1437. With me in studio, my candidate, Mr. Mark Reed, my protege, Attorney Robert Ozeron, my Chief of Staff, Dr. Michael Zima, on the board, Scott Walton, back in Munich, Germany, John Scalia, and back at Work Comp Central, making sure the whole damn thing goes right, is Kristen Chavez. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters. We are, of course, brought to you by the WorkCompCentral.com. If you want the #1 location for blogging, education, credits, the whole ball of wax from workers' compensation, both in California and the United States, give them hook them up, give them a call, communicate with them however you want. WorkCompCentral.com. They have a free 7-day subscription, no obligation. And if you decide to get their services, and believe me, I have them, it's only $1 a day. WorkCompCentral.com. And of course, we're also brought to you by A1 Law. If you want the #1 location, if you want the #1 computer management system for workers' compensation attorneys, check out A1 Law. And A1 Law, it's only $1 a day also. 818-357-4120 for your no strings attached money back guarantee. $1 a day, A1 Law. Well, I got to tell you that tonight we're doing something we've never done before. Mark brought in Kiwi, and she is Facebooking live the show. So for those of you that are seeing the radio podcast, if you want, you can call in, presumably to Mark's phone. I guess you could call into mine. And you can say hello and ask us a question. Or
with Facebook Live actually going now, they can type in the question.
Thank you.
Kiwi, as you called her. We'll call her.
Well, that's
Kiwi
what she said to call her. She said she wants to be called Kiwi.
A new nickname for her.
There you go. And so, anyways, you can.
They can just type in the question, and Kiwi
there you
will,
go.
Kiwi will,
and she will let us know if a question comes in, and we're more than happy to address it. For those of you that have not heard Work Comp Matters or seen Work Comp Matters before, we mostly concentrate on employees, employers, independent contract issues, but also current events in the state of California, and of course, once in a while, Donald Trump sneaks in. We're going to get to the show title in just a moment, but I wanted to give the Work Comp Central story first right off the bat. RTGR Law, a workers' compensation defense firm, announced yesterday that it will merge with Armstrong Law Firm effective May 1. The merge firm is going to be called RTGR Law LLP. Will have offices in Oakland, San Jose, Sacramento, Los Angeles, Van Nuys, Orange County, and San Diego. Armstrong, who founded the firm in San Jose in 1993, is a former member of the State Bar of California Workers' Compensation Law Advisory Commission, and he is also a frequent presenter for the California State Bar Workers' Compensation Section. Richard, the merged firm's managing partner, was a commissioner at the State Bar of California and is a certified specialist in workers' compensation and services on the California Board of Legalized Legal Specialization. That is a main story that we picked out for WorkComp Central from WorkCompCentral.com. And you can check that out. And again, they offer a totally free 7-day subscription, WorkCompCentral.com. One of the reasons why I read that story first, and thank you, WorkComp Central, is because, as you know, the show is titled, I Want to Be a Lawyer. Now, I am not a lawyer. I have never spent one day in law school and have no immediate plans to go to law school. However, apparently, Kim Kardashian does. And when I first heard this story, I was checking out all of the responses, and a majority of them seemed to be negative. How dare Kim Kardashian try and be a lawyer without going to law school? How dare Kim Kardashian try and ruin our profession? How dare she do this? I got to tell you, folks, I think you all missed the mark. Firstly, I don't think Kim Kardashian plans to study law, take the bar, and then go ahead and join or start a law firm and represent criminal defendants or personal injury or tort or civil cases. I think she's doing this to educate herself, number one, and number two, play a more integral part in Kardashian, Jenner, and company. I mean, Kim Kardashian herself is worth $350 million. I don't know how many millions West is worth. And then, of course, you've got Kylie Cosmetics, the youngest billionaire in the world ever. The Kardashian-Jenner family is worth about $2 billion. And they must have a whole team of lawyers either working for them or on their behalf. And I guarantee you, one of the reasons why Kim wants to be a lawyer is to better acquaint herself with how to supervise all these lawyers that she's paying $300, $500, $1,000 an hour for whatever they're doing to properly represent that $2 billion interest.
Well, the interesting thing is I think she's going to go the Abraham Lincoln route. And by that, I mean she's going to essentially be tutored. You know, she's not going to go to law school. The California bar allows that if it's properly supervised. And she's got the dough to do it. She's just going to have the best tutors come in. And for probably about a year, maybe two, it's not going to be a classroom. She's just going to be spoon-fed all this stuff with the intent of teaching her how to spew it out on the bar and pass.
4 states in the union do not require graduation from law school to run for the bar, and 1 state, Michigan, doesn't even require you to pass the bar.
That's because it's really hard to get in.
As long as you graduate from the law school. Mark, you wanted to comment.
You know, I was going to say this, and Robert here is one of the lawyers on this roundtable, and if you really understand an individual that has a multi-billion-dollar organization such as the Kardashians, you need to understand the law. Otherwise, the lawyers are going to just take advantage of you. So whether she becomes a practicing attorney or just an individual who wants to understand her own business practices within her billion-dollar company that they have, who's to say it's good or bad?
Not all attorneys are trial attorneys. Certainly,
most aren't.
Most aren't. No,
transactional guys.
Robert and myself see attorneys day in and day out, and like any other group, some are fantastic, some are very average, and some are just horrible. But a lot of attorneys who pass the bar don't even practice.
That's true.
That's right.
I have a cousin who works for a middle management firm in Century City. His name is David. Actually, he's my brother-in-law, and he never goes to court. He just sits back and does a whole bunch of gazillion-dollar deals. But I was told a very long time ago, and I still believe it today, that unless you want to perform surgery and cut into a patient, that a law degree can be applied to any field that you want to go into.
Unless you want to be a doctor.
Yeah, unless you want to cut into somebody. That's right. Yeah.
Being a doctor, you have general medicine, then you practice general medicine. But if you're going to specialize in something, that's no different than attorneys. You have a general law practice, or you have a specialized field of law that you're going to practice. Otherwise, you become something like Michael Cohen. You get a case, you figure out how to fix it, you go in there and you fix it. Kim Kardashian at least won't do what a lot of our Hollywood elites have done, and that's going to hire somebody else to take the bar for her.
Thank you very much for that. Of course, we had that show. Yes, go ahead.
So actually, Kim Kardashian's father, Robert Kardashian, is the reason the family is famous in the first place.
Well, he was on the O.J. Simpson team.
Correct.
Right.
Well, Robert Kardashian, in his heyday when he was alive, was one of the best criminal defense attorneys in Los Angeles.
Really?
Well, he's part of the dream team for O.J., isn't he?
Yes.
So I don't doubt that she's probably going to be a heck of an attorney if she becomes one, if she's her father's daughter.
And
I think she's a pretty smart individual.
If I had $350 million, I wouldn't be going to law school full time anyways. I would be doing it the way she's doing it.
I wouldn't trust the numbers. I think those are a little inflated when I hear them. I think a lot of it may be Donald Trump style numbers where you put your own additional value with your name on it. So it's your own opinion that you're a billionaire.
So she has half that, 175.
I don't know. All
million.
I'm just saying is there's no doubt a lot of what they call goodwill that they say in the name recognition that they have valued into their valuation. No doubt.
That is definitely part of how you.
So when I hear that
business,
number,
yeah.
I smile a bit. But sure, whatever. They're a billionaire, whatever you want to say.
Well,
so am I in my own head.
Kind of like Donald Trump, they have a branded name.
Yeah.
So that branded
No
name, there's a
about it.
value to it. What is the value? Well, to the
Correct.
Kardashians, it's worth $1 billion.
To them it is.
To
right?
you and I, it might be worth $20.
Yeah, I would. I don't think you'd pay me to take it, but that's beside the point.
So I have no problem whatsoever with her studying for the bar, and frankly, folks, I think she's going to pass her first time because she has the ability to take 3 months off, go into a cave, study nothing but California law, and I think she'll pass the bar.
In relation to how to actually become an attorney without going to an accredited law school, I'm aware of that as well because in my own office, I have offered to my staff that we'll call it Ozeron Law School, and we can do it. It's called the Law Office Study Program, right? Or clerkship if you guys want to be more old school about it. There's actually a format. We were going to get it all done. You have to have a written test every month. They have to be graded. They have to be a cover sheet. There's a check. I think it's $175. I have it here. I have the rules on my phone right here because I've already created a folder in my home office.
And I read or I heard Kardashian also already passed the baby bar. She's
planning on taking it, I heard.
Taking the baby
so
bar,
that's why I'm also going to
Passage
say
rate is much lower with the baby bar.
correct. I mean, there are people who can go to online law schools. I know one.
One is called Abraham Lincoln School of Law. It's an online law school.
Well, I think another one is it's not USC, it's UCS or something. I forget because I went to USC, but I remember that the initials are very similar. But it's an online law school, not accredited, but it allows you to take the baby bar. That's what they call the first-year law student's exam. It's actually after the 2 years of law school study or 2 years of the judicial study program, the clerkship. Okay, and so you have homework every day. Every month that has to be mailed into the State Bar of California with a check, right? And it's got to be 24 months. And after that, I don't think there's a month off or anything. It's 24 months. I'll check the rules. Then you can take the baby bar. Then if you pass the baby bar, which is its own exam right there next to the people taking the real bar. So it's real stressful. I mean, right next to you is a real bar exam.
You're required to take the baby bar if you're not going to an accredited law school, correct?
Correct. If you're not going to an accredited law school, you need to pass the first-year law student's examination. We call it the baby bar. You can get there any way possible. You can go online. You can take the clerkship route if you know an attorney and they're willing to give you the homework. I had a plan of doing all the homeworks early and then simply getting your envelopes ready with your checks and just mailing it out every month. You'd have to do a real intense weekend where you do all the exams. And then from there, you're already done. You just have to go to the baby bar and try to pass it. After that, you have to do another 2 years because it's not accredited. Then you get your chance at the bar. When you get your chance at the bar, you have unlimited chances. So here you go. You're there. You can be what you want to be if you can pass it. If anyone's taken the bar who's listening, I'm sure they remember the scenario, the large conference center, these tables laid out as far as your eye can see almost, and there's people, perfectly spaced apart. Everyone's kind of doing their own little ritual. We talked about the bar. As you guys know, I only had the pleasure of taking it once, but I wouldn't try to take it again, no.
Well, thank you very much for that. My name is Steve Appel. You're dialed in to Work Comp Matters. We're brought to you by theworkcompcentral.com. If you want the #1 location for workers' compensation, advertising, blogging, getting your MCLE and your CE credits, check out workcompcentral.com. We're also brought to you by A1 Law. If you want the #1 computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other system in the damn Kuiper Belt, check out A1 Law, 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached money-back guarantee, $1 a day. A1 Law. Well, like I said earlier, he's my chief of staff. He's my right-hand man, and he is the doctor with the next news story of the night, Dr. Michael Zima.
California state government's bill for public employee pensions is set to rise by $676 million. CalPERS on Tuesday advanced a scheduled increase in employer contribution rates, bringing the state's total bill for the 2019 to 2020 budget year to about $7 billion. That money comes out of taxes and fees collected by the state and is part of the compensation promised to state workers. That's unfunded liability, is it not, Mark?
It absolutely is. That is the biggest danger to the budget of the state of California right now. It will create the collapse of California if they don't address it.
It doesn't look like they're anywhere near to address it.
No, they're not going to
They keep throwing money at it.
That's because the unions actually hire the best negotiators, and we're hiring the worst negotiators. We call them elected officials. So in order to become elected, what do? They give away the kitchen sink, they give away the bathtub, they give away the house, they give away the neighborhood.
They think getting a deal is a good deal.
Exactly. Just getting any deal is a good deal. You look at what the teachers union, what they just did, same thing. They're not increasing the benefit to us, the end user. They're increasing their opportunity to be reelected. You can't blame the unions for the great negotiations they do, and I never have. I've been on the opposite side of a negotiation table with the union and the producers. Mm-hmm. And it's like everybody at the union was, complaining about this guy, Nick Counter, being the best negotiator out there. And I said, well, why are you complaining about it? Why don't you try hiring him to negotiate for our side?
All good points. Mike, what was the story that was just read? I had to step away.
Number
really
two.
Okay, I'm going to go with #1. Since taking office in January, Governor Gavin Newsom has put forth sweeping proposals on issues like health care, housing, and wildfire prevention in hopes of legislative action later this year. Additionally, Newsom also announced today that Los Angeles County will join California's prescription drug single purchaser system, a move which Newsom says will make it easier for Californians to negotiate drug prices. Los Angeles County is now the largest local partner in the system, which was established by Governor Newsom via executive order shortly after taking office.
I'm going to read #4, guys. New homeless shelter in Hollywood. A new shelter has opened in Hollywood, sweeping 72 people off of the aging entertainment district sidewalks. But the opening has triggered a crackdown on street camps that advocates warn is criminalizing homeless people. The $3 million Schrader Center, or shelter, between Sunset and Hollywood Boulevards is a second facility to open its doors under Mayor Eric Garcetti's, quote, a bridge home, quote, initiative.
So I guess they're not putting those shelters halfway between here and Barstow. They're right in Hollywood, right?
Or in Barstow. I believe that your recommendation was to put them in Barstow and have them build it, too.
Well, my recommendation is that, and my tax dollars will contribute, get the shelters built or get closed, vacated buildings renovated and then get the homeless off the street and into shelters, because we cannot legally kick them off of the street unless we have a place first to go.
So that's my question. In this story, it says sweeping 72 people off the aging entertainment district. What does sweeping necessarily mean? Does that mean an arrest? What are we actually describing?
It's 72 people who were living on the streets that are no longer living on the streets.
Again, you just kind of went around it.
How did they voluntarily?
Okay, so that's what happened.
Yeah,
I'm wondering. So I would just have be cautious about curtailing freedoms, even of homeless people, right? I think if we want to treat homelessness, you probably have to start at the root problem and not curtailing freedoms on the back end after the problem is there. I'd be very dangerous. Very cautious.
Robert, you know Laura's Law. You also know what is it called? Pinterest? No, it's the Lafferton-Pinterest Short Act, which was the Ronald Reagan's act to prevent people from being swept up and put into homes involuntarily. Now, I'm going to tell you something right now. This is appalling in its own sense, because in the city of Los Angeles, there's over 100,000 people who are living on the streets. To spend the millions of dollars that they're spending on 72 people and calling it homelessness is an abomination in itself. What we have in the city of Los Angeles, in the county of Los Angeles, and the entire state of California is a major mental health care and drug addiction problem that's being wrapped up in this neat little ball called homelessness, where you have billions of dollars being thrown at it. And if you do the study in San Francisco, it's become a new industry. And the people that are the clients of this new industry are the people living on the streets. They're not doing anything to help them out. Now, under Laura's Law, they can be deemed incompetent of taking care of themselves. And they are incompetent. They are incompetent.
Well, that's what the story was a little vague, because it also says the facility's $3 million, and I don't know. Does that mean the initial down payment and one-time construction, or is that like a yearly operational cost?
No, it's not the yearly operational cost. Right now, Eric Garcetti, they're around the one in downtown LA by Alvaro Street. They spent $700,000 just on the decking around the units. $700,000. I can build 3,500 square foot houses with 8 bedrooms in them for $700,000.
So the money is clearly being mismanaged. There's no question about
not competitive. You can put it that way. They don't have an interest because it's not their money. So they just say okay to whatever offers come along.
But then the operating costs aren't being talked about in here with the supposed wraparound services. Now, if they're not being competently taken care of with mental health care and drug rehabilitation, which they can't force them into it, they're refusing the compulsory programs right now. They're just taking a homeless person who obviously can't take care of themselves, throwing them into a bachelor house and saying, okay, do it. Here you go. You can participate in these programs.
They clearly need to be supervised.
They have to be supervised, but they don't have to be. What's happening if you go into LA family housing, you look up the complaints that are being brought forth in there. There's still prostitution going on in these facilities.
Drug use going on.
There's drug use, major drug use going on.
I wonder if Garcetti asked these people before moving in.
Is it booze?
It's booze, everything. What it is because it's unsupervised, they go in and they crash out for the night. Then they leave in the morning. They go off and do all their hanky-panky all day long, just like they normally have done in the past.
Then
they
come
go back and
totally
crash
stoned.
out. Totally stoned out and drunk, and they crash out there. This is it's a great idea to relieve the guilt of a lot of people who have made a lot of money in Los Angeles, and they see people living on the streets. It's a guilt release, and that's all it is, but it's not addressing the root cause. What are the root causes of individuals living on the street? It is mental health care and the lack of it. And it's drug rehabilitation and the lack of real drug rehabilitation programs, which is not a 30-day or a 60-day program.
Well, Mark, we've discussed this many times, and we've had guests that have taken issue with the drug addicted and all that kind of stuff, and they talk about economics. Do you think economics have anything to do with this?
If it costs the city of Los Angeles almost $100,000 to arrest somebody, go through the entire prosecution process, and then jail them for a year, it costs upward of $180,000 per head for the prosecution and jailing for a year. You're trying to tell me you can't take care of somebody's mental health care,
No,
drug
I'm
rehabilitation?
talking about the cause of the homelessness. We've had guests that talk about,
Cause.
well, the economy is bad or something.
It's always a hodgepodge,
right?
but I think mental illness and drugs right there are the big two.
And family violence, I believe, are the three main contributing factors. And, I mean, we can talk about this. We could do a whole show on this. We could go another hour, and we
Well,
have.
I'll caveat Mike's comment in a short one. If you're talking about true homelessness, where it's economic indicators, those people are being taken care of quite easily by all of the faith-based programs, nonprofit programs, county and city programs, and they're seeking help and they get off the streets. The people that are being left on the streets are the ones with serious mental health care issues and drug addiction.
To remain
they
on
do.
the streets.
They'll tell you flat out they don't want to be in a house.
You're dialed into Work Comp Matters. Great conversation. My name is Steve Appel. We're brought to you by theworkcompcentral.com. Check out workcompcentral.com. They've got a free 7-day offer, and you can pick up their services for $1 a day. And also the best computer management system on the planet, A1 Law, 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached money-back guarantee, $1 a day. A1 Law. He's a regular contributor to the show. He's my German attorney. Actually, he's not. He's a retired 45-year California workers' compensation attorney, and he's hanging out in Munich, Germany, enjoying his life. This is John Scalia.
Hi, this is the madman across the water with a weekly report from Munich. Well, the gift that keeps on giving keeps on giving. This week, Donald Trump, when informed about Julian Assange's arrest and Assange being the head of WikiLeaks, said, "What's WikiLeaks?" Unfortunately for Trump, 161 times during his campaign, there are recordings of him talking about WikiLeaks, including one in which he says, "I love WikiLeaks." Well, this is consistent with his sociopathic behavior, or perhaps it's just consistent with Alzheimer's. The other day he said his dad was born in Germany, whereas in fact his dad was born in the same city my dad was born in, New York City. There were two topics I was debating about this week. The first was a letter from the retired Nazi Pope, Pope Benedict, the German guy who looks like one of the Munsters. And in case you think I'm using hyperbole or exaggerating, no, good old Benedict was a Nazi soldier for 2 years during the end of the war. Yeah, that's right. And he blamed the misconduct of Catholic priests on the sexual revolution of the 60s, despite the fact in 62 he wrote a great article why all investigations in the church should be confidential. But I'll save that for another time, because what I'm sure is going to be talked about this week is Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. Now, as you all know, WikiLeaks was a website which released cables, data, all kinds of information from all kinds of embassies all over the world. Basically, it was an effort to bring politics or diplomacy out into the light of day, as opposed to the secret corridors of power where most governments prefer to have them done. Obviously, when you do this, you're going to tick a lot of people off. And Julian Assange, an Australian native, an Australian citizen, did in fact tick a lot of people off. And of course, among the people he ticked off were the Americans and a bunch of Europeans, but a lot of the Americans, including Hillary Clinton, by the way. So, there was an accusation in Sweden that Assange had committed sexual offenses. It was being investigated. Assange has always said that those investigations were a pretext by the Swedes on behalf of the Americans to extradite him to America. And he never wanted to go to Sweden to answer any questions because he was afraid he would simply be turned over for trial extradition to the United States. As a result, Assange sought asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. This is at a time when Ecuador had a left-wing president, and they granted him asylum, and he has lived in the embassy for 7 years. He's recently been arrested. Why? Well, as it turns out, the new president of Ecuador is not so left-wing. The new president of Ecuador is, in fact, very right-wing. He started out life as center-left, but now he's very, very conservative, which is using the polite term. He's gone to international institutions, including the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, and borrowed billions. Now, you can't borrow billions from those institutions unless you're friends with, guess who? Yes, the United States of America. And the Mueller investigation apparently points out that Paul Manafort, the guy who's going to jail, who was in charge of Trump's campaign, met with Moreno back in 2016 and discussed whether or not we could get a hold and extradite Julian Assange. What a coincidence. Anyway, the Swedes, Assange always told the Swedes that he would answer any of their questions if they would question him in the Ecuadorian embassy. Finally, I believe they did, but they dallied for years. So some of the complaints had to be dropped due to statute of limitations, and eventually they dropped the whole investigation, theoretically. Now, with the left-wing government in Ecuador, the president says, guess what? We're revoking your asylum status, so you're no longer granted political refuge in the embassy, and the Brits, who are American lackeys, can come in here and arrest you, which they did. And what did they arrest him for? They arrested him for failure to appear in London to answer the Swedish extradition request, which really no longer exists because the charges in Sweden were dropped. That's right. It's all a ruse. So they arrest him, they bring him out of the embassy, and he's going to be, there's an extradition request from Sweden. Well, that's okay. They may ship him to Sweden for part of the extradition there, but as soon as he gets to Sweden, there will be an extradition request from the U.S. Now, what did WikiLeaks actually do? Well, they released information that stopped a lot of countries from dealing in the dark with their diplomacy. And all the countries use the old mantra, oh, it's national security, oh, you're going to endanger people's lives. To this day, there has not been a single instance where anybody can prove that any of WikiLeaks' revelations endangered any spies, agents, or diplomats. Okay? So, what's going to happen is, unfortunately, thanks to the power of the United States, he will probably first be extradited to Sweden, and the Swedes will turn him over to America, where the Americans cleverly charged him with hacking and not with publishing confidential information. What they say is he hacked into government computers. Well, if he actually did the hacking, then he's guilty of a crime. But probably, and I'm not sure about this, they probably allege he was in a conspiracy, in which the level of proof is, did you actually know about it? Did you talk to people? Were you part of it? So they may not have to prove actual hacking. Anyway, they're going to extradite him to Sweden probably, and once there, he'll probably be extradited to America, and the dog and pony show will go on, and a guy who is responsible for shedding light on diplomacy may end up going to jail. Well, that's the view from this side of the pond this week.
And thank you once again, the madman across the water, 45-year retired workers' compensation attorney John Scalia. We got a musical break, and we'll be right back.
How does it feel to be one of the beautiful people? Now that you know who you are, what do you want to be? And have you traveled very far, far as the eye can see? Baby, you're a rich man. Baby, you're a rich man too. You keep all your money in a big brown bag inside a zoo. What a thing to do. How does it feel to be one of the beautiful people? How often have you been there? Often enough to know. What did you see when you were there? Nothing that doesn't show. Baby, you're a rich man. Baby, you're a rich man too. You keep all your money in a big brown bag inside a zoo. What a thing to do. Inside a zoo, what a thing to do. Baby, you're
the folks on Facebook during the intermission break. We're setting up the music, and it's a learning process. You're dialed into Work Comp Matters. My name is Steve Appel. We're brought to you by theworkcompcentral.com, the best in online information, blogging, and credits. WorkCompCentral.com, and for the best computer management system ever made for workers' compensation, A1 Law. It's only $1 a day. It's money back guaranteed. 818-357-4120 for your no strings attached. A1 Law. Okay, guys, what's next? Go ahead, Mark.
I'm going to take on LAPD's use of deadly force. The use of deadly force by the Los Angeles police and the number of suspects killed in violent encounters dropped in 2018. Officials reported Tuesday. Even with reductions, the LAPD led the nation in fatal police shootings last year with 14, the report said. The Los Angeles police officers fired their weapons 33 times last year, compared with 44 shootings the previous year, a 25% decrease, according to the report presented to the Police Commission. It's the second fewest incidents of police shootings since 1989. I like the percentages aspects, and being the national rep on several national committees, I've always got a kick out of percentages versus real raw data and raw numbers. Because how many encounters did they have with individuals to come up with the 33 different shootings? How many violent encounters did they have to come up with 14 fatal?
Do you think they're fudging the numbers?
What neighborhoods did they take place in?
Exactly. How did Prop 47, 57, and 109 play into this report as well? The fact that people are becoming less and less publicly respectful towards the Los Angeles Police Department and the rule of law. This is where, it's a great and interesting report, but I also think it's pretty much a very misleading report, because the number of incidents, violent incidents, I can tell you as a family of cops, that police are brutalized. There's one that I know of right now. The guy was 6'3", got brutalized by a homeless guy. This homeless guy was amped up on methamphetamines, picked this 6'3" cop up, slammed him to the ground, and broke this cop's back. This cop is now sitting on a desk for the rest of his career, and there's nothing that can be done. So it's two-sided. I never.
Isn't it true that most police officers never draw their gun in their entire career?
My grandfather was a retired sergeant with LAPD. He was during the times of the great mafia on Sunset Boulevard. Never fired his gun once. So there's a number of cops. So
seems like he was on the take.
Yeah, maybe. You never know.
What year was that, Mark? What years?
I couldn't tell you the years. I couldn't think
30s?
back. Probably the 30s, yes, back in the 20s. My great-grandfather came over on a buckboard over Barham Pass to settle in the San Fernando Valley. This is how long our family has been here. And so, yes, we've been involved in the Valley and L.A. politics, L.A. Police Department.
Was that a Reed that came over?
That was a Konenkamp, Germany. Yeah, German. Yeah, it's Konenkamp.
I want to take the next story, number 15, guys. About 8 million people live within 50 miles of San Onofre Power Plant, the now-defunct beach-adjacent plant located between Oceanside and San Clemente. Inside the plant is 1,600 tons of radioactive waste. Much of the spent nuclear fuel is currently sitting in cooling pools, waiting to be moved to a safer location, specifically one that's less vulnerable to earthquakes, faults, and rising sea levels. Mark, any idea where they want to move that Shiite to?
I have no idea. Based on past, they're probably going to move it to an Indian reservation and radioactive the Indians in their country. That's being a smart aleck, because they've done they've done that in the past.
Well, there has to be a certain geologic formation for them to put it in there.
They've done that, I believe, in the salt mines and stuff in the caverns. Yes. Yeah. So I don't know where they're going to put it and what would be considered safe.
I don't know if any place is considered safe.
I don't either, because it never.
How about outer space? Maybe one day.
Well, what happens if NASA accidentally blows up the ship on its way up with the stuff?
Well, maybe you could do the launch from somewhere far away. Or they're going to build that space elevator, as you know. It's going to be a lot more...
Space elevator?
Double fuselage aircraft.
elevator.
You're talking about the double fuselage
No, I'm
aircraft?
talking about the space elevator, right? It's an idea. I know it's all sci-fi.
Mike was
For now.
telling me earlier that France runs 100% of its electricity on nuclear power. Is that true?
That's what I heard.
It is true.
So where do they do with all
Really?
their stuff?
Yeah, where do they put all
the
their
nuclear
stuff?
technology today allows for nuclear power plants without this massive kind of waste that's going on and or the dangers. I mean, this is where new technology have taken place.
I think the French technology's old, though. They've been doing it for decades.
They've been doing it for decades.
Well, you're
but
still-
San
you're-
Onofre
you're
is
still-
older
you're still
technology.
cool.
Way,
San Onofre
way,
is
yeah,
way
You're
it's
still
way older.
cooling the core with some type of water that when you cool the core, it's going to be radioactive. So you got to put the water somewhere. Isn't that right?
Well, the water's not radioactive.
Oh, really?
No, it just cools down.
It just
the
cools
Okay,
it down.
okay.
It never gets subject to
Okay.
it unless you break the cores.
Yeah, which would be bad.
Yeah, which is not good. This is why we've got that radioactive waterway from Japan coming over here. You have glowing fish.
You're talking
I'm
about
I'm teasing you.
He's
now.
teasing. He's
I
teasing.
think there was radiation that
There
was spilled
was-
out into the Pacific.
there
and
was
Well, that's why they
radiation
want to move it
in
because
it.
it's right on the
Yeah, it's
Pacific
right on-
Ocean. Robert, do you want to read another story?
Sure.
Okay. You're listening to Work Comp Matters. My name is Steve Appel. We're brought to you by WorkCompCentral.com and A1 Law.
Well, we'll do the big one.
Can
Notre
I just say
Dame.
one other thing about the nukes?
And then Robert's going to do Notre Dame. Okay.
Steve, you and I were talking about, you brought this up today, and I was flabbergasted, that UCLA used to operate a nuclear, what?
A nuclear reactor.
And UCI still has one.
Yes, UCLA stopped doing it in '84, and apparently UC Irvine currently has a nuclear reactor on campus, a very small one.
Yeah, it's all about size, right? I don't know if they can
Size
make
does matter.
a...
Huh?
Yeah, especially when it comes to nukes.
Yeah. Okay.
So number 8, we're building Notre Dame. As everyone heard, most European insurers expect France to bear the bulk of the cost in rebuilding the Notre Dame Cathedral after a fire tore through the 8th century old Paris landmark on Monday.
Boy, that was incredible to watch, wasn't it, guys?
That was incredible, but I think the most despicable part about that is everybody coming out immediately saying that it was a terrorist act and
I heard
Muslims
people
were
thought that,
celebrating.
yeah.
And
There's no evidence of that
there's
whatsoever.
there's
But
absolutely no
initially,
evidence.
people were talking
Yeah,
about
they were going off on
Yeah.
it really fast, and
Speculating.
I think that is a barometer of where media is at today, and that is speculating and creating hypertense attitudes towards different groups, and I thought it was abominable. It was a tragedy in itself that it burned.
Did the media come on to that? I mean, I just heard it from some people. Did the media come out and say that it's
A
possible
lot
that
of the social media came out
Social
first.
media.
Social media came out first with it, and then because of that, it pushed certain media outlets to kind of tag on to it. There's a possibility, they don't know. But then within a few hours, I think the French came out and said there's no suspect of any kind of a terrorist act or arson involved. So they tried to squash it as quickly as possible. But there was a family that is going to donate $100 million.
Louis Vuitton or whatever
Louis Vuitton,
it is,
yeah.
or Yves Saint Laurent or one of those
Saint Laurent, one of
designing
them.
firms.
Yeah.
Well, I think that perhaps I checked into some of those what you call conspiracy theories right away.
Yes.
Right, because initially I was watching the news and they were talking about how they have no information about what caused this fire. And obviously that's going to lead to speculation. And not to say that the conspiracy theorist that it was some sort of terrorist attack is correct, but I can't say that it's totally baseless. Because in understanding the history of France recently, that they've had a lot of desecrations of holy landmarks that are not Muslim landmarks. They're presumably desecrated by Muslims.
Christian and Catholic churches have been burned. I think it's over 100 of them been burned.
But I think in France, they've been averaging some sort of 2 a week on vandalization or desecration.
Right.
And I think that's where the idea came from. Not that it's accurate in this situation specifically. Probably not, and perhaps it is an accident. But, I was interested in learning about why people thought this, and I didn't know much about the, French society as far as, you can call it the Islamization of Europe. It's an interesting thing to watch right now. That those two cultures kind of clash, and that's where a lot of the conspiracy theories may be bore out of. Simply, they want to blame each other.
I'm sure that that's the reasons why, but is it justified and is it acceptable to the general public to jump on that conspiracy bandwagon right away? It's kind of like prosecution by association, and that doesn't work. We need to wait for facts to come out. It was a tragedy that church burned like it did. It was a complete success by the French of putting it out and saving the
saving the other parts of it.
The fire department's chaplain. The fire department's chaplain went in, organized right away, and brought out all
300-year-old organ.
But I think the conspiracy theories, the reason that they're created so quickly, or the accusations without fact, you can call it, not a conspiracy theory, but an accusation, baseless, is because of the lack of assimilation by the people moving there.
Agreed.
And that causes friction. And when you're having crimes increase, it's natural to assume that incident right there is also part of the pattern. It's a human fault to do that, obviously, to just be so presumptuous and to jump to conclusions. That's why we have a system in place. We know that we are like that as creatures. That's why we need to slow down.
The media should be stamping those conspiracy theories down by coming out with facts.
I saw Shepard Smith on Fox News. I saw somebody in France immediately was trying to promote that theory, and Shepard Smith cut him off. He said, "We're not going to get into that game without any actual proof."
Yes.
And I agree with that. I know a lot of people didn't. I did think that was way too much speculation. It's in court, objection sustained, right?
Yes, exactly. Immediately.
Speaking of fires, already facing criticism over a proposed bonus plan for thousands of employees, PG&E plans to pay its new chief executive at least $6 million a year to run the bankrupt utility. In its filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission, PG&E said Tuesday that new CEO Bill Johnson will receive $6 million a year in base pay and stock awards. The stock awards will be based on a performance scale heavily weighted towards the utility's safety record, an apparent nod to critics who have ripped PG&E over the deadly wildfires of 2017 and 2018. In a related story, California regulators have expressed skepticism that PG&E's new leaders have enough professional experience to instill the deep corporate culture of safety they say the company has lacked.
But when you have a governor like Governor Brown came out and allowed PG&E to be exempt of the cost of putting out the wildfire created by their equipment,
gave them some immunity,
and passed it on to the ratepayer. I mean, how are you going to hold PG&E accountable? I would love to be able to say, well, I burned down the neighborhood, so let me go ahead and charge the next neighborhood to rebuild that neighborhood. This is where, again, our government officials are falling way short of protecting the consumer.
Do you believe that there should be some sort of subsidy, at least, to the power companies so they can provide power to perhaps rural individuals?
To rural individuals, yes, but
because it's not feasible economically to just provide power to them based on their consumption, right? You have to subsidize that.
Well, we're on a national grid. Okay, so PG&E takes from the national grid as well. All of us do. Ever since the deregulation of the utilities in California, we used to have a separate grid here. We produced our own electricity. We sold it. We were off of the national grid. When they went ahead and deregulated it, it went to the national grid. Now we're stuck with everybody else's problems. And we were able to supply electricity at a reasonable cost to the rural areas where people couldn't get it.
All right, I'll read the next story. 420 at 420 on 420. All right, what can this story be about? Planning to indulge in some high times at 4:20 p.m. on April 20th, the date that many are looking to celebrate cannabis culture.
This coming Saturday or Friday? Today is the 17th.
It would be very 420 to space on the date. Yeah. So, if so, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MAD, is urging you to also plan for a designated driver to avoid making any potentially tragic mistakes. The odds of being involved in a crash after 4:20 p.m. on 420 is 12% higher in the U.S. than it is for the same period a week earlier. According to Canadian researchers, who looked at the 25 years' worth of traffic data, and for those under the age 21, the risk increased by 38%.
I wonder if 420 this year is anticlimactic now that marijuana is legal.
Probably
in California
probably like a holiday. I would urge everybody who's listening, and let's be honest, if you're listening this far into the show, you're probably on something. Be responsible on 420, okay? If you've made it this far, you could keep on going.
Call Uber or Lyft if you can't reach a friend.
Yep.
I think we need a measles update.
Should we talk about Lyft stock first?
Oh, yeah. We should
go
talk
ahead.
about Steve and stocks because I turned Steve onto it. Oh, my. Go for it, boss. Tell everybody what you've been up to.
Okay, then don't forget the measles. Okay. I am a deprived child, and I have been living in the Stone Ages. Yesterday, for the very first time, I signed up with E-Trade, and I transferred money to buy some stocks. Now the money's there, but it's not there, so I haven't been able to buy anything. Robert was kind enough to help me. I was on the phone and texting him about setting it up. Now, for those of you that may not know, I was married for 11 and a half years to a stock broker, and naturally me, the trusting soul that I am, sure, honey, control all the money. Whatever you want to do is fine. It's not a problem whatsoever. But this is the first time in my life, and I'm going to be 59 years old next month, that I have taken charge of investing, okay? And, I write checks to pay my bills. I put money in a savings account. I do my best to get 10% a month or whatever like that. But this is the first time I actually opened up my own brokerage account, invested some money, and it's ready to go. And as soon as they say it's okay, I'm gonna.
Well, you're a first-time client.
I'm
you got to give
first-time.
them a data
and
clear
Robert
cash.
and I were talking about whether or not to invest in Lyft, and I think I would like to invest in Lyft. I think it's going to go places just like Facebook.
And what did I tell
did.
you? I told you I think there's better investments out there for your money.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You advised me to stick with the blue chip stocks, which are not a bad deal.
Especially for a rookie, right? Especially for a first-timer.
Total rookie. I mean, I know that Warren Buffett, the king of investors, has always said he will not invest in it unless he can hold it, see it, touch it, purchase it, something that he likes. You know what I mean? So, I mean, McDonald's, is always been a good solid stock, and IBM has always been a good, solid stock. I know that Robert, I don't know if he owns any, but he constantly said, Amazon's been up 30 days in a row, boss, and I guess in the past 30 days it's gone up 10%. You can't beat that. Or 30 days.
But I also told you just, the day-to-day, these 30 days moving averages, it just slow down. It's ups and downs of the market. You make a good investment, and then you can kind of
I'm putting in what I can afford to lose. And, of course, I don't plan to lose it. I don't plan to be a day trader and speculative. But I want to have.
But you were awful excited on the phone.
I'm still very excited.
So I got concerned. I said, "You're going to slow down." I thought you were going to buy one stock and then watch it for a while.
I would recommend. It's an old book at this point, but it's by Charles Schwab, and it's called "How to Be Your Own Stockbroker." It's a great, easy read, although it might be a bit outdated because it's.
What's it called? All right.
How to be your own stockbroker.
Or Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab.
Schwab.
He's Schwab Investing, right? He has his own stock program.
Well, he was the original. They were the original discount broker before E-Trade came about.
Yeah, and then there was a bunch of TD, Ameritrade, right? There was all those companies at the time, all those online platforms.
At the time he came out, there was nothing like it, and there was no tech to speak of, right? And also he was worried it was going to take off, and as he writes in the book, some of the other huge stock brokerages chose that time to raise their commissions.
I also heard that if you look at Donald Trump's stock portfolio and you follow him, he's not going to screw himself while he's the president of the United States.
How do you know? How do you know what he's trading in?
I don't know. But
I thought he's supposed to be shielded from that stuff.
And
probably a blind trust.
Well, you can find out all of his corporations and find out what they're invested in.
But he knows what he's invested in ahead of time as well.
Absolutely.
It's not like he's going to make a bunch of trades every
But I'm a person who thinks the stock market is just legalized gambling, and I can't insure what I can't see. So I've always invested in property. So my investments are always in solid property because I can insure it. If it burns down, I can rebuild it. I mean, it's something that's tangible, and I have it in my hands. I've heard too many people jump into the stock market. They put 200,000 into it, and the next day they're broke trying to get the 200 grand.
Well, I think a lot of people do chase, the big come up, which I was telling Boss here about. Steve, I said, let's slow down, right? Blue chip stock, you buy it, you hold it. It's been around 50 years. It'll be around another 50 years. It's fine.
Long-term investment.
Pick something you'd want long term. I actually advised Coca-Cola. I said that was something that pays dividends.
That's a great stock.
You drink it.
Simple.
Everyone in my office drinks Coke. We hate to admit it. It's too much sugar, but everyone loves it. It's standard American.
I've heard there's a big push for Coca-Cola to stop messing with their original formula and go back to it.
People are getting off of the health kicks, really. They're enjoying life a little bit more, I've noticed. We had a really big fitness craze, even here in L.A., and then everyone's now kind of mellowed out, and they realize how good a nice cold Coke is on a summer day with some ice.
Well, should we move on to the homeless at San Francisco? Authorities at San Francisco International Airport are struggling to deal with the rising numbers of homeless people arriving at the international terminal, many of whom seek shelter in the middle of the night after riding BART trains south from the city.
Oh, just wait till we're dropping off illegal immigrants there, too.
Exactly.
Well, they're already dropping off feces and needles, so it might as well be everything else.
San Francisco is a prime example of the exact industry I was talking about with homelessness. They have no desire to fix it.
What a shame. That city used to be absolutely gorgeous.
Well, lived there for 13 years.
What's interesting about San Francisco is that it's this liberal, ideology, but the disparity between the have and the have-nots can never be isn't greater anywhere else on Earth, in fact, at least in America, than right there in their liberal bastion. So, interesting.
You have people shooting up and, shooting up drugs right there.
But then you also have the billion-dollar
and
tech companies, and they just leave them right there by the highway.
And these liberals are walking past them, going to work every single day.
Complaining about income disparity.
Yes, exactly.
It's amazing hypocrisy that occurs in San Francisco, it appears.
Thank you very much. We've got about 4 minutes left, so maybe another news story.
Well, let me do the
two.
measles because this is important.
Please do.
Okay, most Republicans are rejecting Democrat-led state bills to tighten childhood immunization laws in the midst of the worst measles outbreak in 2 decades, alarming public health experts who fear the nation could become as divided over vaccines as it is over global warming. Democrats in 6 states, Colorado, Arizona, New Jersey, Washington, New York, and Maine, have authored or co-sponsored bills to make it harder for parents to avoid vaccinating their school-aged children. The number of new measles cases in the U.S. rose again this month, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said on Monday, bringing the total numbers to 555 in 2019. This year's outbreak is on course to be the worst since the country eliminated measles as an endemic disease in 2000. Health authorities reported 90 additional cases as of April 11th, with outbreaks in New York, Washington, California, New Jersey, and Michigan, up from 78 the week before.
Do you think there's a direct correlation to the amount of illegal immigrants and not being processed in a legal manner that are attributing to this problem?
No,
as well?
These are uppity white people.
It's
it's religious conviction.
Once in a while,
religious people and
so?
people who are totally ignorant.
In New York City,
These are people on Facebook who get their information from other people on Facebook, and it's trendy and it's cool, like being vegan and then being vegan level 2, whatever that means.
So I'm catching right off the bat. I'm the only one here that's probably anti-forced vaccinations. Because I believe in the
Just don't go to public school.
No, see, I believe in the old school vaccinations of measles, whooping cough, polio, and so forth.
Yeah.
But these bills here are taking away parental rights of consent and informed. The doctors are no longer held liable, or the pharmaceutical companies held liable for a child having a major adverse reaction. It goes beyond just the simple ones. This is, to me, it's a scare tactic.
Well, Mark, do you think that an unvaccinated child should be allowed to go to public school? Because
if you're vaccinated, it doesn't mean you're not going to catch it. It's not 100%. The vaccinations are not 100%.
Yeah, but you're not answering his question.
But we nearly eliminated measles
go to public
prior
school.
to this.
All of my kids are how would you say, they've had the base vaccinations.
The specific question is, if they're unvaccinated for measles, would you have an objection to those children going to public school? Because I certainly would.
I would
too.
If their kids are vaccinated, why are they afraid of mine if they're not vaccinated?
Because they might catch it?
How about this? Does anyone around the table think that if a child
you can catch it if you're vaccinated, though.
Gets measles, their parent could be criminally prosecuted?
No.
Why not? I could see that being almost child abuse.
Well, right at this point, you can have AIDS and you can go ahead and pass it around, and you're not criminally liable for that anymore.
Yeah,
If you
actually,
do, I
that's
think
not
if you, that's
entirely
not true.
true
If you
either.
do it
No.
intentionally, it's actually a crime.
Yes.
But that's beside the point. I think the science is overwhelming. We've nearly simply the fact that we've used to have nearly 100% vaccination rates, and measles was gone, and now we have these people playing
But that
pretend
was
scientist and
100%
doctor on
vaccinate-
Facebook.
That was 100% vaccination on the old tried and true vaccines of measles, whooping cough, mumps.
Okay. Well, we can
and
argue
polio.
about which specific serum to give somebody at a particular rate and how much in dosage. That could be debated, perhaps.
One
But
minute, guys.
But
One
the
minute.
fact that these children need these vaccinations, and that the reason that they're getting measles, perhaps dying or suffering serious disability because their parents decided to not attend medical school, but still play doctor with their life nonetheless, right? For a child who cannot speak for themselves, who can't come to their own opinion until later, you're
Well,
putting
would
them in
you- would
danger.
you criminalize
I would
that?
criminalize it so fast. All right? If your child gets measles and you purposely did not give them the vaccination, knowing that you should have, you had an opportunity perhaps, you can prove opportunity, that's it. That's a crime.
So you believe in state control over children?
No. Well, there is state control over children. You can't abuse your children. You can't leave them hungry outside, right? We do have state control.
So if your child goes to school, you don't believe in parental consent, being informed. The school can give your kids vaccinations, and you're not even told about it.
I feel bad for the child that his parent is an idiot. But you know what? That shouldn't be the child's responsibility for their whole life. Possibly the end of their life before they could even make a decision on their
We'll have
own.
to
It's
take
not
this
right.
argument
We
up.
could certainly
I
talk
was
about it
going
a
to
long
say
time.
we
Yes.
could talk about this during the next show or many shows, but unfortunately we are now out of time. It's been a great show and one that we have Facebook Live for the first time. So
Yes.
I'm clearly
Thank you
interested
for
to see
watching.
how that's going and or how that ends up. And I want to say thank you very much, Kiwi, for doing that for us. You have been a great part of the round table. For my candidate, Mr. Mark Reed, for my protege, Attorney Robert Ozeron, for my chief of staff, Dr. Mike Zyma, for Kiwi handling the Facebook Live, Scott Walton of Uncle's Studio, retired attorney John Scalia in Germany, and all the good people back at WorkCompCentral.com who continue to support and approve of this project, including, but not limited to, Kristen Chavez. Sorry about that, Kristen. My name is Steve Appel. We'll see you again next week for another edition of Work Comp Matters.